Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to your screens. It's your favorite show on Tuesdays, right? CRM Convo. And today we have the charming Laurie McCabe again at our, so to say, your entertainment, our knowledge enlightenment, and in all, you could say edutainment, in the way of that we have some exchange of knowledge, as Laurie last time came along and we discussed about what small and medium businesses might have for benefits in utilizing AI and which are areas to go for. Now we can encourage you to listen 60 minutes to the results of what she has found out. Welcome, Laurie. It's good to have you back again. And please, if there is anybody in the audience who does not yet know you and your company, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi. Thank you again for having me here again. I always enjoy talking to you all, especially without sunglasses. But anyway, yeah. So I am.
That one without the calls, but we should repeat that one.
Yeah. Our company is SMB Group. I'm one of the co-founders. We've been around since 2010, and just like the name says, SMB, we focus on small, medium business and mid-market, and kind of how they're using technology, how they think about technology in their business. That's the nickel version. I guess other than that, we're like other analyst firms. We do research, which we're going to talk about some of that today. We do analysis, consulting, all those kinds of fun things that analysts get to do.
Excellent.
That is very cool. And just to utilize that Blues Brothers moment again, you are in a mission, not for God on your way, but for the small, medium businesses. And you do that mission in a fantastic way, in a lot of research, which you share and which are sponsored by smart organizations, which would like to spread the helping hand from bottom up and use your knowledge, your competence, and your network as well for their benefit as for the benefits of their new to be won or existing customers. Now, that study was driving me really around as AI is the topic. And we have some folks around from some organizations which on the 3rd of August have introduced their new edition, where they would like to get a lot of organizations which have not so much started yet with CRM to get them on their side of the ecosystem into the blue cloud. And they would like to get them easily to start CRM, to play a bit with words. Aside of the research, what was your first takeaway when you have seen the update, especially with the marketing edition, and there is a lot of AI integrated? What was your first take?
Do you mean for, I feel like we're kind of talking in code. Do you mean for Salesforce Starter, the
yes,
new?
Ma'am. You are precisely encrypting my code.
Okay. Well, matter of fact, I did write a blog on that, so you can go read that at lauriemccabe.com. But I think, what they did with Starter is first of all, they addressed that gap of not really having any marketing functionality before in what had been called Essentials, right? That was kind of the predecessor to Starter. And the reason that Essentials didn't really have marketing was because the Marketing Cloud was not built on the same core technology platform as Sales Cloud and Service Cloud. So it would have required a lot of kind of complicated integrations and investments. And workarounds to just give the small businesses or the businesses that are, just starting to use CRM, a little bit of marketing functionality. So Marketing Cloud is now on the core Salesforce platform. So they've now been able to put, the marketing basics that any small business needs into Starter and integrate that. And that's the key thing. It's all integrated now, right, with sales, marketing, and service, because that's what you want, right? And in between that, it's a lot of rebranding, which gets very confusing, but Essentials was the first one, then it became Easy. When it became Easy, they also they took steps to make it easier for people to try it, sign up for it, and figure out how to get started with it. So I think, between adding and integrating the marketing functionality, everything, the data cloud behind it, and the easier to use kind of aspect of it and get started with it, I think that's a plus. And also, and this is maybe a little more nuanced or subtle, but with Essentials, they were really targeting Essentials to small businesses.
Yeah.
I think they capped the number of users at 10. The positioning for Starter is different. The positioning for Starter is for businesses starting to use CRM. And there is no cap on the number of users. And it's meant to really get anyone involved in the Salesforce ecosystem. Now, of course, I'm sure they love people to graduate and move up. And I'm told even some people have already moved up from Starter. But there's no longer that it's only for small business. And, there's a lot of even medium businesses that don't really use CRM. They may use point solution.
I appreciate your first take on that one, as I took this reasonably as a starting point, because they have an AI platform integrated in as well. And so I'm curious what your study started to reveal, such as how many participants did you have participating in the study?
Yeah, we had 750 people in small, medium, and mid-market businesses. So for us, small is 1 to 99 employees, and medium is 100 to 999. Mid-market is 1,000 to 2,500. And they were all, they all had to be business and or technology decision makers in their companies. And we conducted the survey, which is always important because, things change so fast in technology. So we conducted the survey in June.
And what has changed since June?
Well, I think...
Look.
I'm sorry?
He said a lot.
Yeah, a lot has changed. I think the biggest thing is this whole generative AI thing, which started, February or something. And it's like a snowball. And it's just opened the door for really everybody to play around with this, right? So in other words, a lot of people might have been using AI in other applications. A lot of even small business applications like Intuit or Xero or, HubSpot or Insightly or, whoever, they already have some AI in machine learning, have had AI under the covers, right? In the machine learning form of AI. But it was really, I think, for a lot of people like a black box, right? Now they get a chance to kind of go in and take a look under the hood a little bit for themselves and see, what can I do with it? How does it, maybe not from a technical perspective, but kind of get an idea of use cases. So we've seen that really exploding. We found that in June, there was like 58% were extremely interested in using and figuring out what generative AI meant and how they could use it in their businesses. And then there was another good chunk, like a third, that were, fairly interested. So that's like the overwhelming majority are interested. And then we also found out that about 3/4 said they were already exploring ChatGPT on their own. That's huge.
Yeah.
I was talking to a client, and we were kind of comparing it to the cloud, and all of us here are old enough to remember, when Salesforce and NetSuite got started in the 1999 era, and just how long it really took for this thing to evolve and become mainstream. And I think this is, other than the iPhone, this is like the rocket. The fastest rocket I've ever seen.
I'd argue.
What do you think contributed to that fast adoption? What was the main trigger for it?
Well, I think there's a few things. Obviously, AI has been around for a long, long time. I mean, people say like 50, 70, depending on who you ask, 70 years. So,
when was
and
Eliza?
it's been, gradually embedded in more. And I'm talking about this from this embedded standpoint in applications, because for a lot of small and medium businesses, they're not going to go, or haven't been going out and buying, AI as standalone and trying to integrate it, or any, if they get AI in the applications they use, they get AI. So as I said, for several years now, a lot of these leading small and medium business vendors have been primarily with machine learning, but then also you've got like Einstein and more sophisticated analytics, and they've been adding more of this into their offerings. So small and medium businesses have been taking advantage of it, but now they can kind of touch it and feel it and play with it.
Yes.
And that makes all the difference.
That is the huge difference. I think the smartest thing that the ChatGPT people could possibly have done was to just put it out in the field the way they did. Because, as you said, we've been working around the idea of AI for decades. And, in the CRM industry, the same as anywhere else. But it's always been, there's AI in this product. This application uses AI in this way. Then all of a sudden, we have, here's some AI, go use it.
Right.
And huge explosion. It was the smartest thing they could have done.
Right. And I think it's also good because, I think that more people are understanding maybe that they have to at least have some basic literacy
Yes.
around this. And because it's not kind of just a black box anymore.
Yeah.
And they are seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly. When you put something in and ask ChatGPT to do something, you realize pretty quickly that it's okay. It's doing some good things, but it's also churning out some garbage. And then you obviously read about the hallucinations and everything else, which, can happen in business data as well as with, political things or something like that. Misinformation or made up information can happen. So I think it's making more people realize they have to learn a little bit more about this, right?
In how far does the notion of humanizing technology drive adoption? Does the notion of humanizing drive adoption? Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not sure I know what you mean by that, except that
it's conversation, right? It's a conversation in your eyes, and it is something that we do on a daily basis, whether we are writing text or whether we are talking to each other, speaking. So is that? Did you cover that as well?
Yeah, you don't need to have any programming knowledge or again, I mean, I think the more informed you are, the better you can use AI. But, really probably if my Labrador retriever could talk, she could go in and say, what's the best dog food? And, get an answer, right? So it does definitely. It's just like the iPhone. The iPhone was so much easier to use than its predecessors, right? BlackBerry at all. And it just automatically, people are like, oh, wow, this is easy to use. It's fun to use. I can do all this stuff with it that because it has all the apps that I couldn't do with my BlackBerry, and I think it's the same kind of phenomenon.
To what purposes are they using it? The SMBs particularly.
Right. So we found out that, first of all, about
I3, he just asks the same.
Yeah.
And no, I didn't read it before.
Well, about a quarter to a third, about a quarter are using it for actual business tasks, right? And again, I think a lot of that is more on the machine learning, the stuff that's built in, but some of that's definitely people that are already, if you use Grammarly, you can use AI. If you use Google, you can use AI. So it's getting built into a lot more. But in general, we found the top areas that they're using it for today are to help with IT management and support. I know, boo, that's not your area. But the next two are marketing and customer service. Those are the next two areas that if they're using it for actual business purposes, where they're using it. And that kind of conforms to what I've been hearing, in the large enterprise too.
Can you drive a little deeper into the actual scenarios that they're using it for? So marketing is quite wide.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting because when you ask them at a generic level, what are you, and this is pretty much true. So in general, what do you think the biggest benefits are going to be for your company for using AI?
Yeah.
And at the high level, it's about, better, more data, faster decision making, easier to analyze, plan. But when you go into the individual application areas, like for customer service, for instance, it's about, creating content for, agents. It's about chatbots. It's about more of the block and tackle stuff, right? So I think maybe, one is like the promise of it is this more kind of high level business guidance, whatever. But I think as they start kicking the tires more and more, it's on the more pragmatic aspects of the business. And we see that in every application area. It's like, so for like finance, it's like, finding outliers and anomalies and doing your transactional stuff, your payroll and payables and all that faster. So, but at the high level, they all like, oh yeah, the promises are the analytics and decision making.
And what are their worries?
Their worries. Well, their top three worries are data security, data privacy, and they're pretty much the same. And then also in that top three at that same level is the bucket I call unintended negative consequences. That's how we asked it on the survey. We had a lot of other things in there like, the infrastructure, we asked what are the drawbacks to your company using, people don't know enough, on and on and on. But those were the top three. And I think data security and privacy are kind of no-brainers, right? Everybody worries about that. But this unintended negative consequence, it's like, I'm just now realizing that this is going to totally, and I do think even small businesses understand is really going to change and reshape my business, but it's so new and it's changing so fast. I don't know what some of the pitfalls might be, right?
Right. Might not even know how it's going to change their business at this point.
Yeah.
They just know
yeah.
it will.
Should we take any of these audience? They're so patient here.
Yeah. Well, no 3 is active, so.
Yeah, industries. Well, yeah, we definitely find out on the industry front that IT services, software, that kind of thing. Believe it or not, that's number one. They're and in every question, they're like the most aggressive. Whether it's like, seeing more benefits than drawbacks, or using it more already, or planning to use it more. They're in everything. And then after that, I think it was financial services, very high in financial services.
Oh, why they're supposed to be conservative.
They are, but when you think about financial services, and all the ways that it can really help them, and they're probably the ones more out in front on a lot of the analytics and the tools for that kind of thing. And you think how much is already so automated, from stock trading to all your financial transactions and everything else. So these companies, a lot of times they have, the infrastructure to do it. We do find, interesting, like manufacturing was pretty high on a lot of it, which was a little surprising. But then again, I think a lot of the robotics and machine learning things. And don't forget, too, that when we talk about AI in this survey, we don't only talk about generative AI. So this is like their all over appetite for AI. Interestingly, there's also laggards, right? So we found the industries least likely be using AI today for actual business tasks are education, which doesn't really surprise me because you think about, primary, secondary schools, whatever, they're, probably not using it. Construction and real estate. And that didn't surprise me either. And then the one that did surprise me was professional services. So this would be any kind of professional services, excluding like accountants and financial professional services. So lawyers and,
would be a huge upside for them. That's really surprising.
Yeah, but I think probably a lot of risk adversity to that too. So, but on the interest side, I'd have to say, even though you see some big gaps in industries about who's using it today, for really using it for business, and like I said, only about a quarter think they are. But when you look at how interested are you using, the gap really shrinks. So, like 3/4 of everybody is really interested in using it.
A little bit back to the worries. So two of the topmost ones are, serious worries, really serious worries.
Yeah.
How do they address these, and how do vendors address them?
Well, we have a lot of other questions in the survey about what they want in terms of some of the safeguards and checks and balances. But, they want transparency. They want to know what data and assumptions the AI is built on. And they don't need a deep dive technical thing, but they need somebody to be able to explain, all right, the data in this model that we're using, this is how we're getting all this data. These are the assumptions we're building in, because they want to be aware of any biases in the data. They also want to be able to turn automation on and off within an application. And they want to be able to not just turn it on and off, but they want to override it if they want. And they want to have an easy user interface. that makes all of this, configuring it to them, easy to do. And so that's how I think, and they want to know how their data is. Their data is my data being used. That's very important, of course. And I want to be able to easily opt out. And I think even more than that, I want to have to opt in for you to use this data, if you know what I'm saying. So those are the ways I think, vendors can somewhat mitigate the concerns. And I think right now a lot of vendors are really wrestling. Well, how do we do this? I had a conversation with an HR vendor yesterday, and I was really impressed because they're going to have like certificates. They haven't announced it yet, so I'm not going to say anything about the name of the vendor, but different levels of training for different kinds of people with certificates, everything just from basic literacy to more of the kind of things you would need to know if you were on the technology side, or in different kind of roles, right, in the organization. And I haven't seen a lot of that. Maybe I just haven't noticed it. I mean, I've seen a lot of vendors tell customers, yeah, you've got to get educated, but I haven't seen a lot of programs out there from the vendors to help them do that. And so I think this kind of stuff is just going to go crazy, though. I think a lot of vendors will have similar things.
Yeah, lack of education opportunities does seem to be a notable issue with AI. There's so much advice to go learn about it, figure it out, understand how it can work for you, but there is no guide to help you do that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the guides really have to be somewhat tied to both the functional area they're in, as well as the applications they're using already that are putting AI in, right? I mean, we can all just go get some familiarity, what are the different types of AI and examples of it. But I think knowing kind of some of the horizontal implications and use cases, and knowing how the vendor you work with puts those into action, and then also an industry slant to it, right? Because different industries have different privacy and security requirements and things you might need to know about. So I think, and the other thing is that we ask them, how are you and people in your organization learning about AI? And the top ways are all informal, like online publications, webinars. And then number 2 was vendors I already work with. So they're asking the vendors, they're hungry for the vendors to help them. So I think we're going to see a ton of these programs out there.
Well, there already are, especially by I want to get rich fast vendors. So these types of courses. But the actual question is a bit more technically. So what do vendors do technically besides offering courses? But what do they do on technology level to make sure that corporate sensitive data is not used randomly or outside of any usable scope or any allowed scope?
Yeah, well, I am definitely not an
suppliers.
expert in that. And I think every vendor should be asked that question, and is. And what I hear from most of them, and I've just heard kind of the story from a handful of them in the last month or so, is when they're using like OpenAI and everything else, they have a corporate agreement, and supposedly their user data is, so like I'm the vendor, my customer's data is completely firewalled off. It does not go in. It does not get reused. So whether that's, a Salesforce, a Workday, a Zoom, there was actually kind of a big kerfuffle with Zoom. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah.
And I had just been at the Zoom Perspectives Analyst Conference, and they had just gone through, and like I said, I'm not a computer engineer, but they'd just gone through the technology of how they create this firewall and the auditing and the agreement and all that. So I was like, what? So, I think it was cleared up that they are certainly doing that. They're certainly protecting the data. And as Eric, Yang, the CEO of Zoom, said, it would be suicidal if we didn't, right?
Well, the curve profile was a different one. So these terms of services that they offered to their customers was basically saying, I, Zoom, do whatever I want with your data.
Yeah.
Which
no.
Which
So it was one of those unfortunate things that took on a life of its own before they could get in and clarify that no, your data is being firewalled off, and you can have a presentation on Zoom about something, and or you're whatchamacallit, a psychologist, and you're doing telemedicine with a severely depressed person, and that's not being scraped and fed into OpenAI, which would be pretty scary.
Yeah,
So.
That would be
quite scary.
Disastrous. And scary. You're right. And what we were discussing last time with Michael Wu is that we were missing some kind of regulatory framework, which is not on own confidence and speaking proudly about we keep it all safe and sound, but can they prove it to me that they do so? So if there are laws, if there are frameworks, and not only self-guided ethical ones, which I do respect, but it took at least partly a shitstorm for Mr. Zoom to react in an agile way to sort out that there was a mistake and no, we do not steal your data. Well, I do have still my...
I agree. There has to be a way to, because this transparency is so key to all businesses, right?
Exactly.
There has to be a way to kind of like, and I don't know all the numbers that they have surrounding cloud computing, all the standards, bodies and audits and whatever that people go through, which is not done by the government, which is done by standards bodies. And I think in the end, that's what's going to happen. So you're just like, okay, there's a reputable cloud providers. Reputable is like, because they at least hear to all these audits and they pass all these audits, same kind of thing. We did ask in the survey, do you think government should regulate AI? And this was here in the US, and a majority said yes. And then we asked, do you think government can regulate AI? And a majority said no. And you guys may be a whole lot better equipped to do that in Europe. Our government, I don't know. They seem to, except for declaring it like, National Pet Day is October 12th or something. They don't seem capable of too much.
Mark your calendars.
Yeah, they're very good at creating holidays.
I guess that's pretty much the same for all governments. So they need to be slow, right? In order to get it right.
Somebody, I was at an event and I thought this was a good idea, just like they set up the Atomic Nuclear Regulatory Agency or whatever that was called, that still exists. They need to set up a regulatory agency around AI. Now that makes sense to me because there you would have all the brilliant data. It wouldn't be like the people we see on the news, the senators and Congress people who most of them scare me. It would be data scientists and computer engineers and ethics experts and all these things I would hope in this agency, and that probably would be a good idea.
Yeah, but now you are elevating it to United Nations level, and that probably takes even longer.
Well, what is existing is, for instance, the Ethical Commission in Germany, which is also going in depth into the AI discussion, and that for years, at least 10 years, there are some very smart female professors, not males. The real smartness here comes with the women power and their empathy and their going forwardness, such as be aware of what is doing good, what is doing critical, and watch out for the things which can go totally wrong. And a lot of those influences are going into a draft European Community AI Act, which is under development, you could say so. And taking some folks out of Stanford, funny enough, to go to that regulatory framework because it's the most developed one, and checking all the AI large language learning models against it. Well, if you see the outcome, you stop laughing. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you all in the EU are always ahead on this stuff. There's no question. So it's really, any kind of regulatory thing, so that's good, that somebody's ahead of the curve, because I don't think we really are here.
Yeah.
I believe that you could see it from another perspective. If you talk to entrepreneurs here in European community, especially in Germany, you would get resonance of, we destroy everything which is future. We are against any innovation. You block with your laws and your stupid regulations everything which means progress. Well,
sounds like a culture problem.
We will have to take a step back, as some of your large enterprise entrepreneurs, including Mr. Altman himself, said, hey guys, probably we should take a break, and make it a bit more handable, or get the human into the loop again. But the European community is not a synonym for fast, speedy, and on spot. Yeah. So what is achievable, and what I honestly find quite encouraging, is such an initiative as Salesforce has taken it up, and Thomas wrote an article about that, that this is not a bad idea to do it on a quiet, highly sophisticated or manageable technology layer, and make it accessible for all your products, and have a lot of connecting auditings in built, which gives you a certain guidance and a certain safety till something more regulatory might come.
Yeah. And I agree. I mean, I'd like to read that article, Thomas. I'll have to.
What, you don't read my articles?
I barely read. I know. I mean, I don't think if they're not pushed at me, I
need to shed some tears.
Anyway, yeah, you'll have to send it to me. But I want to read it. Yeah, but I mean, let's face it, though. This AI genie is out of the bottle, and just like anything else, once it's out of the bottle, you're not going to push it back in. But as you're saying, creating some guardrails is really necessary.
Yeah, maybe some sort of fan to blow it in the right direction.
I would hope. Yeah.
That's what I basically ask every vendor that I talk to. So, what does your technology do to safeguard your customers' data and information, and their customers? So, because in order to get good results, you basically need it. You can't go with the generic stuff that GPT and other models scraped out of the blacknet and the darknet in order to come to a good result that is valuable for my business regarding to this question. So that needs something else. So
absolutely.
And they're not talking enough of it. about it. None of them actually, except one.
Yeah.
Salesforce. And they're not talking about it often as well.
In the CRM realm.
Yeah, not only CRM, it's even more. Well, HR is even worse, right?
With the well, it depends on the vendor, but with the generative AI,
worse. I'd say more important. That was the connotation there. Not worse in terms of bad. It's more important there because it's all personal by definition.
Yeah. I mean, I think because with generative AI, it's, unlike machine learning now, which, now it's really part and parcel of a lot for a while, but it's going to take a while for them to, and I know, another vendor, which I can't name, but a financial vendor in the mid-market, they're right now putting together 50 use cases for generative AI and their financials, and they're doing exactly, or they sound like they're doing exactly what you would want as a customer. They're finding really pragmatic things. They're making it really clear. You can use AI here to do X for you. This is, and so for these 50 use cases, that will be rolled out, and the customers will be able to try them and, be really clear on what they do, what the limitations are, how they're getting what they're getting. Very, I mean, to me, like, especially in finance, that's like exactly what you would want.
Yeah.
But I just think it's going to take a lot of, some time really for people to start coming up with good ways to do this, expose it, educate people, build in all the safeguards, yada, yada. And in the meantime, it is kind of buyer beware.
Yeah. Does it always need generative? To me, it appears like at the end of the day, this is a front-end technology. Means user front-end technology. What we basically want is have some smartness behind the scene that does the digging and searching and giving the results. And then we want to have presented it in a way that is digestible for us.
Right. And that's why I think all of these companies are using words like augment and co-pilot and this, because it does have to be, you can't just trust this thing.
Right.
Maybe, I mean, in the broader sense, if you're just going in there yourself on your own, you definitely can't trust it. I would hope it will get to a point where and I think it is at that point in some applications where, because it is set up for do a specific thing with, boundaries involved, that it can be used a whole lot more reliably and responsibly. But I think, we're just going to have to wait and see how this all kind of comes out.
Are there particular? Go ahead. Are there particular areas where specifically SMBs are getting the most use out of it? I am curious.
Yeah, I think I mentioned before, the top areas where they're using it for now, AI in general, are IT management and support. And so, you think there's a lot of machine learning in that to help. And then the customer service and marketing.
They are
more
using
generative
it.
end.
Yeah.
Well, we did not get into asking them. We defined a bunch of different types of AI, but then we asked a few questions specific to generative AI about whether they were exploring it on their own and how interested they are in that. But in the rest, we kind of just said, where are you using any kind of AI to help you with actual business tasks?
Did they tell you in which tool connection they are testing, trying?
Well, we didn't. You mean like, are they using Salesforce AI or no? We didn't get to that level because, there's only a certain level you can really get to well in like a quantitative web-based survey.
Yeah.
If you had a focus group, those would be really great things to get involved with. But, we did ask them, do you know if the applications, you're using, do you know if at least one application you're using uses AI in some way, shape, or form? And a lot of them said, yeah, I do know or think I know that it does, whether you use it or not. And then we asked them, how well do you understand how it uses the AI?
Not at all.
And then it really became like, most of them do not really understand how it uses AI. So,
but then the question is whether this is necessary at all.
Well, it is necessary, I think, for them to know what data is being used, what assumptions are in there. I mean, just like a very basic thing, if you're categorizing expenses with machine learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to see how it's defaulting to categorize, I don't know, whatever you're buying, whether it's a meal or the meal is probably too easy, but you want to see how is it categorizing it and is it putting it in the right bucket for me?
Well, it needs to be explainable, but on the other hand, if you're saying I need to understand how it works, then I need to be able to understand every single algorithm.
Oh no, they don't need to. No, this is more. Do you understand how it's using it? To get you the information you're getting. So it just gets back to what data is in it. What are some of the assumptions? I mean, it's really interesting because, the bias assumption, right? Especially like in something like HR, is really something that could be very dangerous to your organization. So I would think if you were in HR, and they are kind of laggards for some of this AI stuff, but if you're in HR and you're using it for any kind of hiring, recruitment, performance, all these things, I would want to know.
Yeah, that's why we are back to explainability, because in a neural network, you will not be able to understand how that data is used. You don't even know where it is stored and how it is stored. You don't even know that. But getting a little back to away from technology to there are these three areas, the main areas where they are using it. And I understand that.
But they're using it in a lot of other areas too.
Yeah, fair enough.
Believe me, it goes down like from 33% using it in the top area that IT service and support to 25 something. So using it in whatever was the lowest one. So it's not like there are any areas they're not using it in. And I would also, I think I said before, the interest is really strong across all of them. Like 50% or more are interested in using these across all the areas.
Okay, got it. So what I'm actually interested in is, although it's early days, do they have already indications in how far they benefit from using the technology?
Well, a lot of them,
having it measured.
Yeah, a majority said it already has an impact on their business, which is kind of interesting because, only, like I said, somewhat over a quarter, it might have been like 28% say they're using it for actual business tasks. And then we had another percentage using it experimentally. But I think that's for generative AI. But I think, they're already with other kinds of AI in terms of analytics and machine learning and all these other things. They're already seeing the impact. About, let's see, I think it was 2/3 say it's of those using it said it's already impacting their businesses.
In what way?
It's helping them work more productively, more efficiently, do things faster. The things that hyped really about it.
Okay, so they are getting the results in the areas they expect them to be in.
Right. And then we ask them also, how big an impact, or do you expect, no, how do we ask this? How big an impact do you think it will be in 2 years? And then 75% said either very big impact or a modest impact. And only 5% said no impact.
Quantify, is it possible to quantify very high and modest?
What do you mean
Quantify a very high impact is, how does very high impact differ from modest impact?
I think it's, you know it when, again, like, you know it when you see it. You know, it's like, you know, how big an impact did it have on you when you decided to marry your wife? Very big impact.
It changed my life forever.
There you go.
Use marketing, to change marketing
or how big an impact did it have when you got a dog, or when you put an addition on your house, or you know, decided to buy a new car. You know, you kind of know, yeah, it had an impact. I bought a new car, I'm happier. It's not like a huge impact, but maybe it was a huge impact when I put the addition on my house, right?
Yeah. Okay, you talked a little earlier about the law of unintended consequences. What have been some consequences, some impacts that they faced positively as well as negatively that they did not expect?
Yeah, surprises, pleasant or otherwise.
Yeah. We did not ask them that question. That is a great question. So you should just come on board and help us with our next survey, Thomas.
Well, engage me.
You're hired.
Yeah, I definitely think that would have been a good ad for the ones using it already, right? That percentage using it. I think it was more getting back to what benefits are you getting out of it? And I think the unintended negative consequence, that was one of the top 3 things they're worried about. And that gets more to, I don't know what I don't know. You know, some of the other things, the drawbacks were like, I might get misinformation, you know, wrong information. Just trying to get to the right page so I can read you some of the other things.
Different information every time I ask it.
You know, some of the top drawbacks after that, you know, would lead to job cuts, create bad or misleading information. You know, we don't have the skills we need. There's no government regulations. We don't really understand how it works. And you know, another perceived drawback is it may reduce wages, right?
How prevalent were the job cut and wage cut?
Well, interesting. Well, reduced wages was at the bottom of the list. Only 19% rated that as the top, one of the top 3 drawbacks. But job cuts was number 4. 27% put it in the top 3. I will say, though, that more of the SMBs feel that, and I'm trying to get you the exact numbers here. I'm not really good at leafing through this while I look at you all, but more SMBs thought that they're slightly more likely to think that AI will create more new jobs in their company than it will to replace employees. So about 47%, about exactly 47% said they think AI is very or somewhat likely to replace employees in their companies in the next 2 years. But 53% said they think it's very or somewhat likely that AI will create new jobs in their company. So
well, it certainly made a place for prompt engineers to
yeah. But I think even, you know, like information workers, there was just an article that came out today from IBM saying AI, and the people that will be impacted the most and the most heavily at first are information workers, right?
For the first time,
will some of those people be replaced? Yes, but will some of them be really creative in using AI elevate their position in the company because they figured out a way to apply it to different processes and procedures and everything else. I mean, a great example would be healthcare, right? You can really see how AI could, make it possible for all kinds of help with, patient diagnoses and things like that. And then, maybe doctors can spend more time actually talking to the patients and listening to the patients and doing a better job of taking care of the patient. So I think, it is a yin and a yang thing, right?
Yeah, it is. Always is, yeah. And so far, I have encountered only one company, one vendor that pitched, hey, you can cut staff. So far the model is still good. Yeah.
Yeah, well, vendors really don't want to pitch that because it's a concern. But I think that IBM actually, though, that's become a lot of stuff like, it's going to change all these jobs and replace all these jobs. And lately, they've been pretty blunt. But the caveat always is it's going to create these other jobs. So, just like any, I don't know, when the horse and carriage gave way to the car, right? If you made buggy whips, you were out of business probably, or much reduced business. But if you were enterprising, you could certainly find a way to make some car part or, whatever.
Yeah, they probably went on to make the radio antennas.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
So it is a brave new world. And I think, that's at the end of the day from the SMBs, that's kind of, I think they see it. It's a tsunami. It's coming. They have to use it. A lot of them want to use it. They see the promise. But at the same time, it's like, I need to ensure that I'm using it in a way that's going to be not just efficient, but safe.
Right. So it's not a solution in search of a problem. There is real desire to use this.
Well, you think a lot of SMBs, they don't have enough employees to do the job, and they have a lot of employees. We just did a survey for another vendor. We found this is in businesses under 100 employees. The average employee in that business does 4 different kind of functional tasks. So, they may do some on your end, they may do some marketing and sales and customer service, and by the way, also some project management, right? And it's, when you think about that and you think about trying to grow and how hard it is to hire people if you can't offer those nice big fat benefits packages like a large business, right? This is really a way, I think a lot of them think I can do more with less and I can scale. I have 2 people doing customer service part-time. If I use these chat bots and use AI to, automate some of the help desk stuff and whatever, then for the more serious kinds of things, they'll have to spend less time on customer service overall maybe, and they could spend more time selling or marketing, right? And so I think for a lot of SMBs, it's definitely the potential to do more with less.
Okay, so in cognizant of the time, so there was one question that we probably should bring in once more, because I guess 3 was a bit late.
Yeah.
Opening, so you probably
That's great. I'm glad you were listening. Thank you. We have not published what we do every year is we do twice a year we do these big surveys, and then the vendors that are our clients get the full gazilla of it, like 150 pages of all the details. And then we create 2 ebooks. These are drafts of them right now. They're now being formatted and, so they'll be all nice and pretty. And we have 2 vendors sponsoring the ebooks. I'll put in the plug for them, Dell Technologies and Sage Software. But these will be up on the SMB Group website within a week and a half. So I can, send you the links when they're up. And then you'll be able, and they're more the consumer friendly version, high level findings and trends. And if anybody's interested, then the kind of full research with all the bells and whistles, we don't publish for free, but I can certainly get you information if you're interested in buying that.
Excellent.
So, and well, the consumer-friendly version, I can always forward it to Sri if I have the connections.
Oh yeah. The consumer-friendly one is totally free.
We meet once in a while, say,
and there's
4
2.
or 5
and one
times
of
a
them's
week.
going to be about the impact. That's like about adoption and usage and interest. And the other is going to be about what we talked about with the, trust, readiness, safeguards, trust balance, all that, checks and balances.
Okay, now that we are over time, it's time for our famous last words. So, question now: what do you think is the next thing AI that becomes really relevant for SMBs? And I
don't think it's the next thing. I think it's really as the vendors.
Why is this guy on full screen right now?
How'd that happen?
How did that ever happen? Go away. Go away. Go away, Ralph.
You guys got a very pleasant face.
Go.
You could stay on there.
Yeah.
But no, I think the next thing is really just having it very available in these applications and in nice prescribed use cases where they immediately can say, oh, if I use it, I'm going to get this, and have some assurances that, the information they're going to get is pretty well constructed and relevant for them to use. I think it's going to be these SMB vendors surfacing this up in a really useful way.
Look forward to that.
Okay. Thanks a lot for this.
Well, thank you all. It's always so nice to see you and talk to you, and I always appreciate our conversations.
Yeah, we should meet again.
Same here.
Without a camera in between.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks for everybody else who was in the audience. We are going backstage now, and see you next week when we have another very exciting, really exciting topic. Okay, bye.